Assalamu alaikum and hello to everyone who is watching. I hope you're all doing fine and having the best life. My today's video is going to be an extension of my previous video in which I talked about landing your first professional job in Australia. And like I said in that video, that it's a really vast topic. It may not be covered in just one go. So today I'm going to be talking about the questions that I received post that video, messages that I got in my inbox, and the related questions that I have been seeing on different community forums. I will try to answer those questions and those queries to the best of my abilities. I tried doing some research to get answers for some of the questions. So let's go. So the first question is, while being on 491 temporary residency visa, can I do any job other than my own industry or profession? A simple answer to this question is yes, you can. There is no limitation as to which industry or which profession you are targeting once after you have arrived in Australia. The only thing that you should be careful about is that 491 temporary residency visa is a 4 years visa, out of which you have to work for at least 3 years, and there is a certain income threshold that you have to meet for every year, and you have to show it in your tax returns as well. So you just need to be careful around that, and then you are good to go. You can opt for any profession, any industry, wherever you find suitable work. You can work in that and just focus on fulfilling that particular condition so that you are eligible to apply permanent residency. One more thing that I would want to add into that is, if you have arrived here as a couple or as a family, then it's not only just necessary for the primary applicant to fulfill income threshold condition. Even your partner or your spouse, if they found a suitable job and if they can fulfill that condition, then they can also do that. Then they can become a primary applicant when you are applying for your permanent residency. The next question is that, do I need to secure a job offshore if I am coming on a permanent residency or a temporary residency visa? No, you don't really need to. In fact, you should not be focusing on securing a job when you are offshore doing your preparation. The only thing that you are required to do is that whichever category you are applying for, you just need to do a little bit of job research relevant to that profession or that industry, so that you can convince the nominating state or the visa officer that whichever profession you are applying is an in-demand profession, and that you have been doing some research around securing a job, and that you can find ample job opportunities over there. Even if you start looking for work while you are offshore, you may not be entertained by the Australian employers, because like I said in my previous video, there is very low chance for you to secure a job while you are not even onshore. The third question is that, should I get all my overseas qualifications and experiences assessed while applying for a permanent residency or a temporary residency visa? No, you don't really have to get all your credentials and all your qualifications assessed, only the ones that are relevant to the profession that you are applying for your immigration. Like, for example, it's a common practice back in Pakistan and many other Southeast Asian countries that if someone has done an undergrad degree in engineering, they then pursue a master's degree in business administration or data sciences, but they have their relevant experience as an engineer. Your engineering undergrad degree, where you have completed your 16 years of education, is sufficient and it's enough to help you in your points calculation. What is the difference between permanent residency and temporary residency? To answer this, I'll be telling you about 3 different immigration subclasses, which are the most common ones and which are based on points calculation. The first is permanent residency 189, skilled independent visa, in which you are not restricted to live or work in a particular state or territory in Australia. You are free to move around anywhere and everywhere, wherever you can easily find work or the climate and all the other things suit you to settle down. As the name suggests, it is a permanent residency visa. So after 4 years of living on this visa, you are eligible to apply for Australian citizenship. The only downside for this visa is that there are no points that you can claim because it is not state sponsored. The next visa category is permanent residency 190, which is a state nominated skilled immigration visa. So like the name suggests that it is a state nominated visa. So whichever state sponsors you, you have to live and work in that state, as it is a state nominated visa. So you can claim by 5 points to add into your points calculation. Once you arrive here, you're not really restricted or you are not really obligated to live, but it's a good thing that you stay in the sponsoring state for a while. For any reason, if you have to move across anywhere, then you have to actually inform the sponsoring state that for so and so reason, you cannot really continue your stay in this state and therefore you have to move. And this visa also lets you to stay in Australia for 4 years. And after that, you are eligible to apply for Australian citizenship. The third visa that I'm going to be talking about today is temporary residency 491 skilled work regional provisional visa. So this again is a 4 years visa, but the only restriction with this visa is that you are allowed to live in the regional states and territories of Australia. So what does regional means? Regional means that the metropolitan cities such as Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth are not considered regions. So you cannot live or stay in those 3 or 4 cities. Other than that, you can move across anywhere in Australia. You can claim 10 points for state sponsorship in your points calculation, but the only downside is that you're really, really restricted to live in the regional areas. You can move across one region to another region after arriving in Australia. You have to inform the sponsoring state about the reason why you want to make a move. You have to convince them that why it is suitable for you to move from one region to another region. And the other condition with this visa is that out of the 4 years stay, you have to work and earn a certain amount of income for 3 years. They do not really have to be 3 consecutive years, and provide proof of your income and of your tax returns when you are applying for your permanent residency. And there is another thing that I want to clarify over here is that once you've applied for permanent residency, you still cannot leave the region until a decision is made on your permanent residency application. A lot of people assume that once you have completed the residency period, you are free to move anywhere in Australia, but that's not true. Until a decision has been made and you are granted a permanent residency, you cannot really move to the metropolitan areas. So the next question is, can I move elsewhere after arriving on a 491 temporary residency visa? So to answer this, yes, you can move across regions anywhere other than the metropolitan cities, which I have already mentioned. Is it necessary to acquire local qualification to secure work in Australia? It all depends upon your profession. For example, some of the trades qualifications do require some sort of certification and registration within Australia, so you cannot really practice or you cannot really perform any sort of trade work unless you have those certifications and registrations. And with some other professions also, I would suggest that it is always good to acquire any sort of local qualification just to top up your degree or whatever credentials you have acquired from overseas. Sometimes when our qualifications are really old from overseas, then we can always refresh those qualifications by acquiring any supplementary certification or a graduate diploma or a graduate certificates. There are many other options to choose from. After arriving, a lot of courses are government subsidized, so you don't really have to pay hefty fees out of your own pockets. And since you are an immigrant, so you can avail those subsidized course opportunities. What are the most in-demand professions in Australia currently? Well, there are many, but to name a few, civil engineering, electrical engineering, registered nurse, childcare worker, IT security specialists, project managers, some trade professions such as plumber, mechanic, technicians, welders, and bricklayers. But there is a long list of Australian in-demand professions that you can Google. The only limitation is that some of the professions are not in the skilled occupation list, which means that even if you have those qualifications from overseas, you might not be eligible to apply for immigration based on those professions. Or either their points calculation is too high that you cannot really meet points threshold, you will not be able to get any nomination. There is a suggestion for students who are currently studying overseas and who are willing to migrate to Australia to please go through those in-demand profession list, choose the profession or your majors of study according to those highly demanding industries in Australia, and then acquire qualification in those areas and try to get some overseas experience for that. Just went across a query on a community forum where a person said that it's been 3 months that they have arrived in Australia and they are applying to hundreds of jobs per week, but hasn't been successful in securing an interview. So let me tell you that 3 months is not a really long time. Like I said in my previous video, that it can take up to a year, and in some cases even more than that, for you to land your first job. Hold on tight. You don't really have to lose hope. And the other thing is, if you are applying to hundreds of jobs per week, it means they're not really targeting or focusing on the selection criteria of those particular jobs, or just sending out standard resume and cover letters to those jobs, and therefore you have not been able to secure even an interview call. My suggestion to all those people who do this practice is that do not apply for hundreds of jobs every week. Make a target of maybe 5 to 8 jobs per week. Focus on the essential criteria. Try to understand what the employer is asking. Try to reflect all those skills and capabilities that are required by the employer in your resume and your cover letter. Try to make it as customized as possible so for it to stand out in the pool of hundreds of applications that the employers receive. Like I said, the job market is a bit tight at this stage. A lot of people, even onshore, permanent residents, citizens are struggling to secure work or to sustain their work. Whoever is arriving to Australia, they have to keep all these things in their minds. Make yourself open to all sort of work, not just confine yourself to your industry or your profession. There is no harm in doing some odd level work. You can build on your resume, you can build on your skills while being here. Do not lose heart. Keep investing on yourself and your skills. It may take a while, but you will end up getting a job. That is all for today. I'll see you in my next video with some other hot and crispy topic. Until then, Allah Hafiz. Bye-bye. If you have liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified about all the crispy content once it is published.